So I have to be open, receptive, and welcoming to the heat. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Good morning. So our talk title, our talk theme today is Open, Receptive, and Welcoming. And that comes from the global heart vision that says we see our communities as being open, receptive, and welcoming of all people, all faiths, and all paths to God. You know, I was talking, we had practitioner panels here yesterday, and we had a practitioner and a practitioner candidate up from Sacramento, and they talked about how at their church, at certain times of the year, they'll have altars or little stands for other faiths and, you know, other practices, you know, besides ours, and incorporate that a little bit into their service. And I really like that. We've done Hanukkah and a little bit of tip to Buddhism and a couple of things here in the past also. And being open to people, being open to all people. So if I were to ask you, are we open and receptive? Most of us would agree, yes, we are. But, anyone can come here. You know, we're not a judging church. Our teaching is not a judging teaching. We don't have, anything that says, well, this kind of person is going to heaven and this kind of person is not, and this kind of person is welcome and this kind of person needs therapy. We don't have that. There's a few people who think I need therapy, but not as a group of people, so we all agree on that. But I want to look at this idea a little bit deeper, if you'll join me in that. And it got triggered by an incident that happened a few nights ago where I was asleep, and Cynthia got up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden I felt something go running across my legs. Bigger than a spider, smaller than a Great Dane. And it was our little dachshund, Cassie. Those of you who know me know that open, receptive, and welcoming hasn't described my feelings towards our dog, right? Haven't quite gotten there, for a bit. And I realized that I tolerated and allowed the dog, but I wasn't open, receptive, and welcoming. No kibitzing over there. She's hearing this for the first time. It's a different energy to allow and to tolerate, right? Than to be open and welcoming. We've experienced that, right? Haven't we all experienced kind of just being tolerated? We're allowed to be here. So think of being greeted at somebody's door. You go up to somebody's door and they say, you can come in. It's okay. As opposed to, I'm so glad to see you. You're welcome here. Come on in. Tell me about yourself. Different energy, right? One's a very heart-based energy. The other one is just kind of a cold, intellectual, yes, you're allowed here, but I'm not really going to open my heart exactly or explore. I've been in the experience also, and probably many of you have, of going to a party where you may not know a whole lot of people, and you find a group of people standing around talking, and you walk up to this circle of people, and you get one of three receptions. You either get nobody moves, even though they see you standing there. That's called closed. Somebody does finally see you there, and they may kind of move, but you just kind of step in and that's it. Or somebody opens up and says, hey, when there's a break in the conversation, what we're talking about here is the effect of Baroque architecture on Papago Indian dwellings. And any thoughts you might have about that, please feel free to share. It's a deep discussion, the effect of Baroque architecture on Papago Indian. Anyway, we feel welcome into the group, right? When they open up and take the time and bring us up to speed, this is what's happening. This is what we're talking. Please feel free to join with us. Do you notice the energy difference, the energy shift difference? We've all felt that, right? So I wanted to take a look at how we welcome people to the center and people who come to the center. See, I've heard people who've talked about that they've come here for a long time and still get asked, for years, and still get asked, are you new here? Okay? I've talked to people who said, I came on Sunday and loved your talk, loved the energy of the service, but then I went to the social hall and nobody sat down and talked with me. Nobody met me. So what I want to do is ask us to start to be a little more welcoming, a little more aware of that. There's a consciousness here, there's levels of how long people have been in this church, right? And if you're not part of a certain level, then it's hard to break into that level, I've noticed. I've experienced that, and I know other people have talked to me about experiencing that. And when I first came here, and since then even, I've heard this church described as cliquish. I don't think it's cliquish, But what I do believe is that, like all of us, we have our group that we're comfortable with, and we hang with that group. And it's perfectly normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But the question is, can we open that circle? Like when you walk up to the circle in a party, can we open that circle and bring somebody new in, bring them up to speed, kind of this is who we are and what we're talking about, and be curious about their story. See, if a person is new, they're not necessarily part of the story of the history of this church. There's a certain mentality among a few people here that if you didn't put up the walls and hang hang from the rafters and build this church, you're not quite part of the whole process. But each of us comes to this church with our own unique experiences and our own unique stories. Can we become curious? Can I learn who you are? Can I learn about your story? Share your experiences with me. Instead of, the idea of, well, you're not you haven't been part of us, and so it's very hard to break in. So it's having that open-heartedness, it's having that curiosity, so that we are welcoming, truly welcoming, rather than just allowing and tolerating. It was funny when I first started dating Cynthia. I told people, yeah, I'm dating Cynthia Bella, and people would say, who? And Cynthia's been in the church for like 20 years. She was in childcare, taking care of Andrea's kids and all this stuff. She's been in the church for 20 years, and they didn't know who, a lot of people didn't know who she was. I learned the cue, however. The clue was I said, Barbara Bella's daughter. Barbara's right there. And everybody knew Barbara. So the other thing that I want to say about that is people can stay invisible. So it's not just a one-sided, deal. I can come into this church and also I don't get engaged. I don't, reach out. I don't try and get involved. And so therefore there's this disconnect that happens. But we tend to stay invisible when we don't feel comfortable. And one of the ways to feel comfortable is for us who are already here to open up and reach out. Gently, of course, but open up and reach out. This is not one of those fundamentalist churches where we're going to pursue you home and, and make 5 phone calls a week to you, about that. But can we open our hearts? Can we be a little bit more curious and more open to that? Instead of just staying within our own group and within our own story. So it's an invitation to just simply this week and future weeks to just be aware of, who do I not know in this room? Who might I like to get to know? Who am I curious about? Can I take a little bit of time to learn about that person? If I'm a newer person here, can I take a little bit of time to share who I am with somebody if I don't know them? Can I reach out and go meet somebody? And so to start to do that, being open and welcoming and receptive. I want to explore this in a little different way because we're watching this open, welcoming, and receptive playing out in national politics right now, aren't we? My first wife's parents owned property. In fact, this family still owns the property up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. They have this beautiful hilltop, 40 acres property. Half of it's in old growth redwoods, and half of it is kind of open, looks out over the bay over outside of Santa Cruz, and at night you can see the lights of Monterey from a beautiful, beautiful place up in the hills there. And what they noticed was that, and they've had the property in their family since 1907. It's the 3rd generation now living on that property. What they've noticed is that people would come in and buy property up in the hills area there. And as soon as they did, they would say, okay, let's not have any more people come. I got mine. I'm here. Let's not let anybody else in. I'm good. Let's not let anybody else in. And we have this human tendency to want to stay with the known. It's comfortable. We know what it is. And we have this fear of the unknown. It's one of the core human fears, is just fear of the unknown. I don't know it, so therefore I'm afraid of it. It might be dangerous. And from our primitive points of view, in very old times, that was a really good fear to have, right? It was helpful. You step out the cave and you look back and forth and you find out, am I going to have breakfast or be breakfast? It's a good thing to be aware. But it's not always the healthiest way to connect with people. So as we watch this playing out in national politics, and by the way, although it's up right now, it's not new, is it? This whole keeping those folks out has been going on in our country for a couple hundred years. About since the Pilgrims and the Puritans landed, and they didn't want anybody else interfering with their religion, and it's been that way. The truth is, we're all immigrants or children of immigrants, unless we're Native Americans, right? All of us either immigrated here or somebody in our family immigrated here. I think it was Sarah Palin who said, and the Native Americans should go back to Nativia. Yeah. But anyway, sorry. It was a funny. All of us were once newbies here at the center, right? Every one of us was a newbie at some point in time to this Center for Spiritual Living. I want us to invite us to a practice of being more curious and more welcoming and more conscious of that. Be curious. Who are you? How can I get to know you better? What experiences do you have? Okay? And to practice that, to play with that. To play with that at that level. To go to a deeper level than just, yeah, I'm glad, yes, I want to grow the church, I'm glad people are here, but I don't really want to meet them. Okay? Then finally, the other thing I want us to take a look at with this idea of being open, welcoming, and receptive. How open, welcoming, and receptive am I to new ideas? When something new comes into my consciousness. See, if I have an outer reticence out here, I have an inner reticence to new ideas. And we all have the tendency to have that, we've always done it this way. I've always done it this way. This is how I do it. Okay? You get two people together to do, in their relationship, and they come to their first Christmas, and my family does Christmas always in this way, right? Okay? Cynthia had that problem when she started to move into me. I had my place where everything goes into, because I like to have my house kind of organized, and I like to cook, and especially in the kitchen, it all goes here and it all goes there. And she had trouble adapting to and figuring out what that system was. It wasn't necessarily, it was a perfectly logical to me system, but it didn't mean that it was logical to anybody else, right? Okay? So we have that tendency to, I'm comfortable with this and I don't want it to change. Because change is what? It's uncomfortable and it's unfamiliar. It's uncomfortable and it's unfamiliar. We'll even tolerate bad circumstances in our life just because they're comfortable and they're familiar. Anybody besides me ever do that? Yeah. And so we want to go for that comfort. See, familiar equals comfortable, and we want to be comfortable. One of my early teachers used to say, comfort kills. Comfort kills. The metaphor was that you can take a frog, and many of you have heard this analogy before, and if you drop a frog onto a hot frying pan, it'll immediately jump out. But if you put the frog into a cold frying pan and gradually turn up the heat, it'll just stay there and stay there until it's cooked. Because it doesn't notice the rise in temperature, it just keeps on kind of doing whatever it can to adapt to the change until it can't adapt anymore. Okay? So we'll stay in uncomfortable circumstances just because they're familiar, unpleasant circumstances, and the familiarity is what's comfortable for us. We want that familiarity, we want that comfort. Change, and our teaching is about change, right? Our motto is change your thinking, change your life, right? You notice the operative word in both those phrases is change. And by the way, it's also whose? Your, my own life. I change my thinking, I change my life. Change is the idea of moving into the uncomfortable. It's moving into something new. It's moving into something unknown. We call ourselves a new thought movement because it's the invitation to look at something with a new and take a new thought. In a way, we're artists because artists look at the same thing that everybody else sees and see something new, see something fresh, see something different. And can we be consciousness artists in this world? Can we play with that? Can we look at it in different ways than what we're told is the right way to look at it? We all know what the right way to look at things is, right? And by the way, your right way to look at things is different than your right way to look at things is different than your right way to look at things is different than my right way to look at things. But we all know the right way. So we want to be able to move into the uncomfortable. We want to be able to do it at our own pace, by the way. It doesn't mean you have to go charging headlong into absolute massive discomfort, but just if you're willing to change, to start to allow yourself to move at your own pace into a place that's maybe a little bit unfamiliar and a little bit uncomfortable, and to gradually get used to that. It's like when you jump into a pool and it's maybe not quite the ideal temperature, but if you stay in it long enough, you adapt to it, right? Even if you live in Reading, where it's 110 degrees, eventually you do adapt to it. You may not like it, you may not completely achieve comfort, but even I have adapted to it. So uncomfortable doesn't mean dangerous. Okay? It just triggers our fear of the unknown, is all it does. Moving into a place where I haven't been before, talking to a person I haven't met before, thinking an idea, entertaining an idea, and saying, yeah, I'm going to do a practice that I've never done before, just triggers our fear of the unknown. It doesn't have to be dangerous. So we have to remember as we do this that the only thing we're ever moving into is more of God. If God is all there is, then any person who walks into the center is God, the face of God. Do we want to get to know God better? Hey, talk to one of the faces of God. Talk to a face of God you haven't talked to before. Do we want to get to know more of God better? Entertain an idea, take on a new practice, do something that you know is calling you, but you might not feel comfortable with because it might involve a little bit of change. And entertain that idea. Let that in. So we can become open, truly open, receptive, receiving, and welcoming, that hard energy, not tolerating and allowing, but welcoming. I'm practicing that with Cassie this week. I also, by the way, had the awareness that I hadn't been fully open, receptive, and welcoming even of Cynthia, into my life. And so it's like, how can I open up to that? How can I practice that? Can we get inquisitive and curious? Jesus had that moment of where a whole bunch of little kids were trying to get in, and of course you don't, as little kids, try and get in where the rabbi is teaching into the house. And he says, no, let them come to me. Let them come to me. And you need to be like them. Open, curious, inquisitive. What's happening here? Who is this guy? Children haven't changed in 2,000 years, right? We were all like that. Our kids today are like that. Who is this guy? What's happening? We were talking last night at the party about brand new babies, and if there's a party happening, they want to be with the party, right? Even if they're asleep, it's like we had Oliver one time where we were having a party at our house, and he started crying because we were all out here playing music and having fun and singing, and it's like as soon as Cynthia went and got him and brought him out, he was fine. Where's the party? So this week I want to invite us to practice 3 things. First one is, notice any resistance I have to being open, receptive, and welcoming. Just notice if I'm in resistance to that. And be welcome that resistance. Welcome that resistance by itself. Bring it in. Have a conversation with it. Be inquisitive about it. Receive it. Instead of pushing it off in some shadow part of my life, be open and receptive to even the resistance. And ask myself, what is this about? Hi, I noticed you're reluctant to meet anybody new. What is that about? Let's talk. Let's talk. Second, practice just being more open, receptive, and welcoming in your life. You can practice it here at the center. It's usually pretty safe. You can practice it at other places in your life as you feel safe. Practice being more open, more receptive, more welcoming. How can I get to know this person who's maybe new at my work or new at my, whatever, wherever I am? Even just standing in the line at the grocery store. Can I get to know this person next to me? I got 2 minutes with them. Can I get to know them? Just practice that this week. Being more open, receptive, and welcoming. And finally, take a look and see about welcoming a new idea that's been knocking at your door for a while. Many of us have those ideas that, they've been knocking, asking us to receive them in, and we've been kind of like, I'll tolerate you standing there, but no further, right? Anybody besides me? Yeah. So welcome a new idea that's been knocking at your door. Explore it. Become curious about it. Let it in. So are you willing to take on those things for a spiritual practice this week? So we're noticing any resistance we might have, and we're inviting it in and just being welcoming to even the resistance itself. Inviting it in. We're practicing being more open, receptive, and welcoming wherever we can in our lives, and we're practicing welcoming a new idea that's knocking at our door, and letting it in and getting to know about it and getting to explore it. I want to close with a poem It's a poem called Colossus. It's written by Emma Lazarus in the 1800s. And this is at the base of the Statue of Liberty, on the base of the Statue of Liberty. And Colossus, just for background, was the giant statue in, I forget, huh? Rhodes. In Rhodes, thank you. I was going to say Greece somewhere, but it's in Rhodes, giant, huge statue of symbolizing the Greeks conquering the world, striding out across the world. So this is how the poem goes. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here, at our sea-washed sunset gates, shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep, ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she, with silent lips. Give me, your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. That is the foundation on which and vision upon which our country is built. It's a foundation and a vision upon which each of us individually can embrace. Paul Auster said that this poem turned liberty into a welcoming mother, a symbol of hope to the outcast and downtrodden of the world. Can we invite that divine feminine receptive energy in and embody that and be that place where we are open, welcoming, and receptive? I invite you to play with that this week. Let's move into prayer. And so as we open our hearts, as we open our spirit, as we open our minds, as we open within, as we breathe deeply into that opening, we allow ourselves to realize that there is one infinite presence, one and only one life, ever only one life. That life is the pure love. That life is love. That life is the good, that life is the wholeness, that life is the life energy itself of this infinite universe. That life is the only life there is. And because it is the only life there is, each of us and everything and everyone else is one of this one life. Whether we remember or forget, we are one of the love, the life energy, the wisdom, the great good of the infinite one. All of us, every one of us. And so I speak my word that today we, in consciousness, open up our consciousness to whatever degree is appropriate for us, whatever degree we can, to become at least a little bit more or a lot more open, receptive, and welcoming to this one life, with all of its many faces, with all of its many thoughts and experiences and stories and ideas, that we become open with our hearts, with our minds, with our being. We become open to the ideas within ourselves. We become open to aspects even of ourselves that we may have closed off before. We become open, welcoming, and receptive. We allow love to be our guiding light. We allow that bottled lightning to be our guiding light. And in gratitude for the love that this imbues in the world, infuses the world with, because as we practice this, we touch and open up the world. Our openness touches others, who touch others, who touch others, and out it goes. And so I'm grateful for each of us who is saying yes to this, because I know that it creates a world that works more fully for everyone, that is more filled with love, that is more filled with light. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form, moves it into expression right here, right now, within us and all around us, knowing that that law knows exactly how to do so, and we simply say yes and affirm that by saying together, and so it is.